MongoBay.com is an environmental science website with a special focus on tropical rainforests and conservation. So I'm constantly monitoring the news for new research coming out on rainforests or climate change, but I'll also cover things such as green design and more technical aspects, but my main interest is nature and wildlife. Well, my goal is to reach the broadest audience as possible, but ideally, I guess I would opt for children because they're the next generation and they're going to be the decision makers, you know, in 20 years' time. So I know that from looking at my web blogs that I do get a lot of traffic from schools, and I do have sites geared specifically for children. And actually, one of these sites has been translated now into almost 30 languages. One of my favorite places is Madagascar, principally because of the wildlife. About 90% of the species there are endemic to the island, meaning they're found nowhere else. So you have lemurs, you have beautifully colored chameleons, you have bright green day geckos, you have these strange things that are called tenrics. They're kind of like a spiny hedgehog. There's even a tenric that's like an otter or a platypus. So anyway, there's all these crazy, unique species, but kind of like the Galapagos, they're almost tame. So you'll be hiking through the forest and a group of lemurs will come down just to check you out. They're not afraid of you. It has to do with their biology and the fact they've always lived on the island, so they're not used to having predators. So that's one aspect of Madagascar that really makes it one of my favorite places. But it's also quite interesting culturally. Madagascar was colonized not by Africans, but originally by people who sailed over from Indonesia, came clear across the Indian Ocean. And then you had Arabic influences and then later African influences. So you have a lot of interesting cultural traditions. And another thing about Madagascar is it's kind of like California, and it's very topographically diverse. So you have very bizarre limestone rock formations in one part of the country. You have beautiful beaches in other parts. You have rainforests. You have this bizarre spiny forest, which, even though it has no cactus, every plant is covered with spines. So the wildlife, the people, and the landscape really makes Madagascar a special place. So I've traveled all over the world, but I've ended up in the Bay Area. I like to say that I've traveled enough to know that I like it here. Basically, there are a lot of things about this area that I love. The fact that you can live in either a city or a suburb like I do, and within a few minutes drive or bike ride, I usually ride my bike, you can be in a place like this. And there's not a lot of areas where you can, live with all the modern amenities of the Bay Area and have wild places like this and still be near the ocean. So one of my favorite places in the Bay Area, actually probably my favorite place, is Big Basin. Big Basin has a lot of things. It's right on the ocean, so you have the beach there, but my favorite area is actually the forest there. There's a lot of wildlife. There's an absolutely beautiful stream with a waterfall, actually 3 waterfalls. It's a great place to go if you just kind of want to get out of the city. You can ride a bike, you can hike, you can find lots of little salamanders, or the newts, I guess. You see deer, usually see snakes when I'm there, and I've even seen fairly gigantic salmon, making their way up that little creek. So it's an absolutely beautiful site, and it's very accessible, and it's probably one of my favorite places in the Bay Area. Well, so there is actually history behind my name. It's not just a cruel joke. My grandfather roomed with Clark Gable during his celebrity Air Corps tour around the Second World War. He was the sole survivor in a plane crash, and Clark Gable wanted to room with someone who's a test pilot. And at the air base, which was near the set, there weren't any test pilots, but my grandfather was the closest thing to a test pilot. So they roomed together for a couple months. So I kind of had that history. And then the family name was already Butler, so it was only a small step I guess it took a little bit of a sense of humor from my parents, but they decided to name me Rhett Butler.